Hogstye.
Hello, everybody. It is the wonderful, wacky wide receivers week on the Hog side. We have a ton of wide receiver stuff to talk about. So, Steve wanted some alliteration in the show intro. There you go.
I said no such thing this week. That was a prior week when I was
Oh, that was a
babbling
one-off. That was supposed
nonsensically.
to be a one-off.
That way it was whatever I babbled nonsensically off the top of my head.
Well,
And I would like
babbling.
to point out that Alex is bringing up the wide receiver thing up front because he's very proud of himself that he spent 1 billion hours watching wide receiver film.
I think I watched over 50 wide receivers, which
It's
is
a lot.
it is a lot. Now, I did not write a lot about someone because honestly, after like receiver 25, you're like, this guy can run a route. This guy can run a route.
Were you just bored or something or what?
Um,
Did you not have enough to do in your personal life for a
no,
couple
I had
weeks?
tons to do. I told you guys, and I've mentioned down the show. I had the godson over, and I'm continuing the quest to make a teenager love classic comedies. Which this week we went. First off, he wanted to see the Minecraft movie, or I think we're just looking to get out of the house. That was awful. Don't see the Minecraft movie, everybody. Just
Never fear, I will not.
I did not fear it for you. I don't really fear it for Dave. Well, Dave, in like what 3 years, you're gonna have to start taking your grandkid to those.
My grandson actually wants to see it at 3 years old now. But the problem is the horror stories I've heard in the theaters with these little kids, they got bored almost right away,
Oh yeah.
going nuts or running all over the theater. Some parents had to get up and leave because they were going nuts.
It is. So the funny part is they get bored in the only part that's good because it's like them trying to set up the real world and it's, kooky and funny. That's
Right.
where it's actually entertaining. And then it gets to the CGI nonsense that everyone would hate. Anyone above the age of 5. Um, but no, all right. So the movies we went with this week for teaching a 14-year-old to love classic comedy, I gave him like a bunch of options. We went Spaceballs. That was his choice.
I've never seen Spaceballs.
I'm shocked by that one. I know, Steve, you're a recluse, but like that one does
You've
surprise
got
me.
to see that movie.
I've never not been honest. I've never seen it.
I mean, you've seen Star Wars, I assume.
I've seen Star Wars 1 billion times. I
Right.
own like 3 different versions of the DVD of Star Wars.
Just the original
And
trilogy, though.
Yes.
And that is a great, great spoof of Star Wars.
Yeah.
I'm aware of what it is. I've never seen it.
So he watched it. He's at that age where when something's funny, well, this is just stupid. And yes, it is stupid. It's Rick
That's the
Moranis
entire
flying
point.
head first into a giant machine. It's great. But then I will say this: God bless the algorithm at Amazon. It was like 9 o'clock, and it's like, if you like Spaceballs, you're gonna love Holy Grail, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Steve, I remember we talked about this before. You said that's gonna be too old for him. Like as a movie, it turns
Yeah.
50 this month. Actually,
Right.
I double checked.
That was
That's
my
all-
thought. Is like for a 14-year-old, it may look dated.
Watching a movie made 50 years ago,
Yeah.
he loved it. First of all, half of the jokes in it, he's like, "Wait, is this the thing?" Because he's seen the gifs and the memes of like all the great stuff from Holy Grail that makes its way on social media. So like he's now like, "Oh, now I understand 40,000 references online because it's arguably one of the greatest comedies of all time."
So his uncle finally did something good for him.
Yes. That's something other than, taking him out to nice dinners and teaching him how to cook and, adult
Something he's
stuff.
gonna care about though, which is a cool
Right.
movie.
Did I tell you I asked him
Yes.
what adult things he needs to learn, and he said, I need to learn how to do taxes.
That's a weird thing for a child to say.
Right? I said that's not the worst idea, but like
It's a very strange idea.
but it shows me he's thinking.
Yeah, I guess. Does he have a job? No, he's 14.
No,
So
he's 14. The only
he's worried
crummy
about
part,
it now.
yes, the only thing that stinks is they got rid of the 1040 EZ, so I won't be able to show him like how to do it in 5 minutes.
Just have him log on to TurboTax.
I
It'll
will.
be fine.
That's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to show him my TurboTax account and say, this is what I did. click, click,
I
click.
don't
done.
think I've ever heard a 14-year-old ever talk about taxes.
So when I
No.
got my first job, I talked about taxes because that's when I was like, how do I do this, Mom and Dad? And they said, well, let's go to the library and get the form. Like that was it.
I'm trying to remember. I think I've never not used TurboTax.
Even when you were like a teenager?
Yeah, I think
Wow.
so.
It was pretty rare back then for people to use any kind
I'm
of.
trying to remember. I mean, because I've had to dig them all out for the past 20 years recently for a work thing one time, and I think my real early ones, they were always on a printed form, and so I think I probably did use like the earliest versions of TurboTax.
The earliest version of TurboTax was a CD they sent you when you bought it in the mail, if you remember that.
I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
remember. So, but you're gonna teach your
Dave,
14-year-old.
I don't think Dave's ever done his taxes, judging by
Yeah.
Dave's face.
No, I do my taxes every year.
Do you do your own taxes, Dave, or do you send it to
Yes,
somebody?
I do.
Okay.
No, I do my own. The only thing was I went and the weirdest thing is somehow things got switched up on how our W-4s were done.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't keeping up on top of it. Apparently there was a checkbox after I do joint files separately. There was a checkbox in the bottom that confirm about filing jointly or something like that. I forget what the checkbox is. So for like a year and a half, I wasn't paying my full federal. I wasn't paying attention to that, and I owed a boatload of money at the end of the year. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I went through and I reviewed. I looked at my W-4 and I'm like, wow. So I checked that. I'm like, so now I'm paying the proper amount of taxes, finally. But it was that was a bit of a mess with that one.
The moral of the story is don't listen to Dave Earl for tax advice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
pretty
also, look, I understand like some people's taxes are complicated. Generally, do your own. Like I don't think I've ever not done my own, except for maybe the year we bought our house. I wanted to make sure we were filling all like the new homeowner stuff out right. So
Even
we went
then,
to
you can fiddle through it. I mean, and look, unless you are the CEO of a publicly traded tech company, you can probably do it yourself.
Right. Exactly. It's not that hard, especially now with technology.
Right. The higher levels of TurboTax will get you through almost anything.
Yeah. It costs you another $100, but
but I mean,
it's worth it.
Yeah. Tax hour on the Hogsty people.
Yeah. Oh, and when I went and saw an accountant, they literally just opened freaking H&R Block's website and did it on there.
Oh, did they really?
Yeah, and I was like, I could have done that shit at home. God damn it.
What did they charge you for that privilege?
I don't know, 200 something probably.
Yeah, see? Half the price, twice the price of the highest level of TurboTax.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, so 2 good comedies. I'm starting to scrape a little looking for good comedies for the kids. So if people have ideas for what I should show a 14-year-old, and keep in mind teenager, I want it somewhat appropriate. Just send me something on Twitter. Give me some good movie ideas.
Alex is begging for ideas on Twitter. Okay, yeah. So if anybody has an idea for Alex's nephew to see a good movie, let Alex know. What's your Twitter handle?
In specific, Alex35332 on Twitter.
Or at the Hogsty, because Alex is
you can
one
do
that
it also on the
monitors
Hogsty.
I don't know how much monitoring he's doing of our Twitter. Are you monitoring our Twitter?
I am, but because of my new job, I can't monitor on my work computers for obvious reasons. So,
So maybe not too many. Maybe nobody's monitoring our Twitter. I don't know. We're not sure.
I check it on the Metro to see like what comments we've gotten and stuff like that. That's when I'm usually checking it. Anyway, let us talk about the team, because that's what people are here for, right? I think
so too.
Yeah. So some small local things that went on. Washington hosted their local pro day on at their facility, and they had a good number of players show up. It looked like almost a full like 50 some odd players here. I didn't do a head count, but there's some notable names. The receiver from Maryland that a lot of people are crazy for, I saw he showed up. It's annoying that they list them by hometown and not by school.
Yeah, that's not really that helpful.
Right. Well, and also the font is very small now. I'm starting to get old. I can't read things.
Alex can't see anymore.
No, I can't.
Staring at
Ty Felton,
computers
that's
too
what I'm
much.
thinking of.
I talked over you. Who'd you say?
Ty Felton,
Oh, okay.
the receiver from Maryland, who I think a lot of Washington fans are like really gun ho about. But there's a lot of guys from ODU, from Maryland, from West Virginia. No one from Tech, I don't think. That's weird. Not a single Tech player?
Mostly the local crowd, though.
Oh yeah. Like everyone who showed up is for the most part like from the DC metro area. There's like one dude who showed up from like Harrisburg. Well, I don't know. Like I guess you didn't want to go to the Eagles one.
That's still not that far. You don't have anybody from like Oregon.
No. The furthest away there's a kid from Florida. Defensive tackle Jordan Phillips showed up from Florida, but he played at Maryland, so that makes sense. So I think as long as you went to a school here or you played close to here in high school, you were like invited.
So the bigger question is, did anything relevant come of this?
No, there was no big news from it. But
thank you for bringing this topic up on a talk show. Then,
did you find any topics? No.
I'm sure I suggested some.
I don't think you did.
I did too. Yeah, I said I have safeties. I've got running backs. I've got a salary cap update.
Yeah, you did say you have a salary cap update. You want to give us a salary cap update?
Would you like me to talk for an hour about the detailed statistics, of draft analysis? I've got all of that.
No, you do have. Steve want to know
the standard deviation of the selection of wide receivers who get selected to Pro Bowls over the past 25 years. I have this.
Or how about a special team side of it?
Special teams was too hard to nail down. I do have punters and kickers, but there are not enough.
We can't find the next Cameron Cheeseman?
Well, I didn't do long snappers at all. The problem with the punters and kickers is there's not enough of a statistically relevant sample to matter.
Right.
Because few of them are drafted.
And generally none are drafted before like the final rounds. Like
which I haven't got to that part in my updated the analysis yet. But the point is, there's not enough punters and kickers to have any data really matter.
Yeah. Have we had a punter or kicker drafted in like the second or third round since Janikowski was 30 years ago?
I believe
it's been a long time.
One.
Like because that was the one guy that was drafted in the first round, lasted forever, and everyone still says it was a bad pick.
Well, I can tell you this.
Yeah.
Because I just published the update for round 1 and round 2 today.
Right.
So I want to say there's one.
I think Tampa may have selected a kicker.
Okay, there was one kicker in the past 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a lot. It doesn't happen often.
No.
So one is not a good sample size.
Look, let me just go into this real quick. I'm not going to read all this data. It's too boring for a talk show, but here's the bottom line.
It would take you an hour to read it.
Right, it really would. But so after going through all this for round 1 and round 2, more or less, an overall basis, things shake out as you might think. So what I did here is I looked at players selected to the Hall. I had to come up with some objective way to measure success because otherwise none of this works. So I went with selected to Hall of Fame, multiple first-team All-Pro selections, one All-First-Team All-Pro selection, Pro Bowl, and then a player who only started one or 0 years, and that's my bust category. My thought was if they're in the first or second round and they don't start any, they're a bust.
Yeah.
Okay. And so without going into it, this is not the universe of what's defined as successful or bust. These are some objective indicators that can give us an indication of how this goes. And the bottom line is it kind of shook out the way you would hope, which is the good stuff is higher in the draft by far. The farther you go down, it gets more rare and more rare. It's not a case where with quarterbacks is one of the few positions where they do load them up front. They select too many quarterbacks up front. And so the data on quarterbacks drafted high in the drafts is bad.
Right.
and the data and running backs really high in the draft. Top 10 running backs are really good. It's because the teams are drafting so few running backs. They're usually very careful what they draft. And so I don't want to go into all this in too much detail, but it's a pretty even spread from the top of the first round through the second round, descending exactly like what you might think. There's only a handful of data points that are really kind of out of whack with things. One is quarterbacks, drastically overdrafted. The wide receivers are out of whack a little bit. It's just, I think it's just more that it's really tough to figure out what out for wide receiver is going to succeed or not.
Oh, sure.
I already talked about running backs.
Having watched 50 wide receivers, I can tell you that's true. It's going to be very tough. It's very tough to tell.
There's been a lot of defensive ends, defensive tackles that seem to be drafted in round 1. And in round 2, there's been a ton of DBs, ton of defensive backs. I just cramped because to make it easy, it was too much brain damage to split up corners and safeties because I don't know how to judge that. Sometimes they mix and match. I just called them all DBs. And there's a lot of DBs, a ton of DBs drafted in round 2. I don't want to go bore people too much of it. You can read the details of this on the site. And last week I went detail with the top 10 draft picks. So it goes from 2000 to 2024. So 25 years. And this is a lot of work. And I published this 5 years ago, and I got it in my head 2 weeks ago that I'd update this since it's been 5 years and it's perfect time to do it. So that's what we're doing. Right. Next week will be some of this data split up by teams, individual teams.
Right.
How successful the teams did. Spoiler alert, Washington's been terrible. And
especially
then the final
5 years.
The final week will be look at rounds 3 through 7. But at that point, I'm not trying to find success. What we're really measuring, because there's going to be a lot of zeros. At that point, we're just trying to measure who are the hits.
Right.
I had to kind of do it backwards. Otherwise, there was going to be no data because it really falls. I'll just preview everybody. It really falls off the cliff at about round 4. Because after that, it's a total crapshoot.
Right.
So anyway, so that's that.
Yeah. No. So I think the interesting thing will be to see your data 5 years ago versus your data now, if there's really been much change. I imagine there probably hasn't been.
Not a ton. There were more DBs that got drafted in the past 5 years for some reason. Right. But the overall trends basically stayed the same. A couple of the positions moved a little bit up or down the rankings a little bit, but nothing
significant. No. It's not like suddenly we've nailed 80% of the quarterbacks.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Also did, let me get through this real fast too, and then I'll be done. I also updated the salary cap.
Right.
I got everybody this time, but the new guy who's the new defensive lineman, his name I'm going to butcher, TJ Magarayanga, I think it is.
I got it, Maguranga. Yeah.
Maguranga. Yeah. We're all getting it wrong. Apologize to Mr. and Mrs. Maguranga. He is an international pathway guy from Africa, so not a lot on him. But the bottom line is what I have here is about $8.5 million cap space under the rule of 51. As it turns out, some of these guys that they signed, they didn't have data for a couple weeks ago, actually did sign pretty big contracts. It's several $1 million in some cases. And so that did burn through a lot of cap space for these guys. And so then if you take it down and adjust for the draft, add the rookie pool, and they're only down to about $5 million.
Wow.
Cap space. If you include the rookie pool.
That is not a lot less.
Again, a lot of these guys signed big contracts. I'm not going to bore everybody with a bunch of details, but there's several of them that were way bigger than way bigger than I thought. Like Dietrich Wise, $3.25 million. Why?
Right.
There's a bunch of guys like that have that level of what I was expecting is to see $1.5 million, and that's not what some of these were.
Yeah.
So that's your salary cap update, kids.
Now, I don't know if you know this. Were any of those bigger ones front loaded in any way? Is that part of
most of them? No, because most of them were only like 2-year contracts. They didn't really sign anybody to long contracts. They just were bigger dollar amounts than I want. Right. And some of them had guaranteed money. Like again, Dietrich Wise had $2.35 million guaranteed for some reason. Don't understand that. why weird. Yet Cleveland Farrell only has 100 guaranteed, but had a $2 million contract for a year. I mean, it's just some of these, they know better than us, but I really kind of wondered why they're paying some of these guys so much money.
Yeah. I think NFL salaries are starting to get a little messed up, honestly.
Well, I mean, so the minimum is about 840,
Right.
for like the really, really basics. Because when I started doing this, the rule of 51 would cut in at like 600,000, and now we're up
Right.
to over 1 million. It's gone way up.
It has. It has. And I think you also have so many top end guys making so much money that it also makes it harder.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, it's going to get to a point where all this has to balance out. These quarterbacks. Now you're getting a receiver starting to make the top end money.
Yeah.
It's going to get to a point where you're going to have like three top tier players you're going to pay, and then you can't afford anybody else to build a roster around all those three guys. It's at some point something's got to level out, something's got to give, and I think it's got to be that quarterback position because I think they gave a projection if Jaden Daniels keeps on the track that he's going, he's gonna break $50 million a year for annual average salary
Easily.
I'm like that's just insane to me.
Yeah.
But
would anybody care to guess who on this team has the largest contract
right now?
I'm talking about overall contract value.
Overall or
overall.
So not annual.
No, overall.
Overall, I'd probably guess to venture probably Marshawn Lattimore.
It is Marshawn Lattimore.
Okay.
His total contract value was $97 million, even though Washington only got stuck with the last couple of years of it. And then followed him is Deron Payne with $90 million.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if you want I have to.
So I was thinking in terms of annual value right now, it's probably still Terry McLaurin then Deron. Just because I know Terry McLaurin's 25 or 26 million. Deron.
Are you talking about average annual value?
Yeah,
or are you
average annual right now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, because what's actually important is.
Oh, I know.
Cap hit.
Right.
And in terms of cap hit, it's Deron Payne.
Is it Deron? Okay.
Yeah, he's at 26. McLaurin's at 25.5.
Okay.
So it's Deron Payne.
All right, so Payne edges him out.
And if you want average annual value, it's probably still Payne. I mean, search.
Average annual, it should be. I thought Payne was lower at this point.
He's at 22.5 average annual value, and Lattimore is actually only at 19.5.
Right.
And then let me flip down to Terry McLaurin's at 25. Actually, so yeah, Terry McLaurin is actually it.
So it is very average.
No, I'm sorry. That was Laramie Tunsil. Laramie Tunsil's at 25.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then McLaurin's at 22. So it goes
Tunsil 1.
It goes Tunsil number 1, and then
Payne and
McLaurin 2 barely, and then McLean's right behind him, a couple $100,000.
Yeah, gotcha.
There you go.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's not terrible. None of them are also on long-term deals right now at this point.
No.
So, and if you want to re-sign Tunsil, Terry, which I think most fans will, I think you're okay.
Honestly, there's not hardly anybody on this team that's signed on long-term deals.
No. Well, it's the NFL too. Like,
I'm just kind of looking through here. Sam Cosmi is signed through 2028. He's the longest one. And then
not counting rookie contracts and things.
No, I am counting rookie contracts. Like Jaden Daniels is through 2027.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, of course he's got the option and everything, but
right.
Yeah. So none of these guys are signed to hugely long contracts.
Right. But it's also the NFL.
That's one thing that'll be interesting in watching Peters and how he's going with his direction with his team, because he talks about the fact he wants to build through the draft and then you fill the holes in with free agency. So far, year 2, it seems like he wants to focus in on the draft. I mean, outside of the fact that moving the piece he did for Tunsil, but that was worth it. But it's almost like he wants to try to concentrate on potential long-term deals on guys you draft, which you should. I mean, especially if you develop and they become players, and you should bring in these kind of rental guys on the back end of their prime years where they're still effective. Get them for a year or two, and then by the time you have to pay your younger guys, you can wash the other ones out, and then get that rotation of players going through right there. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can keep that pace and if this team will be competitive on that same track at the same time.
I do agree that seems to be his strategy. That seems to be
Yeah.
what he's doing. Even Laramie Tunsil, as much as they paid for him, he's kind of a back half of his prime, maybe I would say.
Right.
Well, I mean, if you look at it, Trent Williams is 37 years old, and he's still regarded as one of the top tackles in the game.
Right, but the wheels are probably about to fall off with him, just age-wise.
Sure.
Yeah.
And at this point, I think Trent Williams has a reputation that, like, fans at least would think he's top, even if he's not. They're going to say he is.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true too. Well, so we should mention Washington did make one big signing here. They added arguably the best slot receiver in the history of the NFL, Wes Welker, to the coaching staff. So that was a big move right there.
He's the best slot receiver in the history of the NFL.
I would argue he's in that conversation, wouldn't you?
Have you never heard the name Ricky Sanders?
But Ricky could go outside. Wes Welker was strictly in the slot, running little crossing routes.
I'm not willing to say Wes Welker is the top slot receiver in NFL history just because Washington signed him as a coach. Okay, that's called being a homer, Alex.
And saying Ricky Sanders is the best.
I didn't say he was. I just said if you heard of Ricky Sanders, are you not even going to compare him? You're going to say he's the best without even mentioning Ricky Sanders. That's all I'm saying.
Well, they're also two very completely different players. I mean, Ricky Sanders is a guy to take the top off the defense.
Right. That's what I think of Ricky Sanders as.
And Welker, he spent his life between the 10, 15-yard mark. And, I mean, he didn't go deep very, very often. They're two completely different receivers. But if I had to choose one, I mean, obviously I would take Ricky Sanders because of what he could do with the defense over top. Sure.
Oh, he's a better receiver, Ricky Sanders is. But I'm saying the best true slot receiver.
Okay, so I've been Googling since you guys have been talking.
All right.
Of course.
And I don't necessarily vouch for this. And we're going to find out the results together. But I Googled top slot receivers in NFL history, and I came up with something on msn.com/en.us/sports/NFL. It says the best slot receivers of all time by somebody named Richard Foster.
Okay, let's hear some of these. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
It's wide receivers week. I said that.
Yeah. It is wide receiver week, yeah.
That's true.
Okay. And of course, one of these I have to go through one by one. Tim Brown. No, it's okay. Tim Brown.
Okay.
Remember him. Doug Baldwin. Randall Cobb. CeeDee Lamb. Anquan Bolden. Steve Largent.
Anquan Bolden is listed as that's ridiculous.
No, half these guys so far spent majority of their career outside. They did play inside.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just you got to have a snap count or percentage of time inside the slot. Ricky Sanders spent most of his career in the slot. Same thing with Welker. These other guys, they lived on the outside, except for Cobb. Randall Cobb.
I definitely wouldn't call Anquan Bolden a slot receiver.
No, he's your classic big man outside guy.
But what Robert, what was his name? What I say his name was? Robert Foster.
Yeah.
Richard Foster. Richard Foster says it. Victor Cruz, who I don't think is a slot receiver necessarily either. Hines Ward.
Would you consider Hines Ward one? I don't. I feel like played on the outside a lot too.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he spent almost a 50-50 time in his career inside and outside.
All right, then I would count him then. He's in that conversation.
I was kind of thinking outside, but I'll take Dave's word for it. So Charlie Joyner, number 7. Tyreek Hill, they're definitely slot receiver. More known maybe for other things, but slot receiver. Cooper Kupp, fair. Larry Fitzgerald.
Okay, fair. Well, no, Larry Fitzgerald, no.
I would think of Larry Fitzgerald as an X, personally.
Yeah,
he was.
Richard Foster thinks otherwise. Wayne Chrebet from the Jets. Remember him? Chrebet, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Julian Edelman. And lo and behold, according to Richard Foster, Wes Welker is in fact the top slot receiver in NFL history.
It's an interesting list. He came to the right conclusion for me, so I'm not going to now say he's an idiot. But the other 19-ish names or whatever it was on there.
Half of them are wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you sure his name isn't Richard Cranium?
I don't know. I can't. I don't have no idea who he is. That's just what Google told me when I, opened up the story. So the point is to this, kiddos, is that Wes Welker is now a wide receiver coach for the Washington Seawards. That's the point.
Right. And the thing that got annoying for this exact reason, in a way, people were like, "Oh, he's gonna help Luke McCaffrey so much." I'm like, Luke McCaffrey is playing like big man possession receiver. He's not playing that like short.
Also, Luke
game.
McCaffrey has his father and brother who've been coaching him for
right. Also that.
Yeah.
Right.
But I did read that Welker coached with Deebo Samuel before and really got a lot out of Deebo. Is kind of why they brought him in.
I'm not saying Wes Welker is a bad hire. I just mean if you think it's going to turn around Luke McCaffrey instantaneously,
right?
I think you got another thing coming.
I'm saying also McCaffrey is not a slot like that. Like
I don't think McCaffrey's done enough to know anything about McCaffrey.
He's still at least another full year away till we actually really see what he
Fair
is.
Enough.
Yeah, I agree totally. Yeah. Yes, is his body type slot receiver type? Yes. Does that mean it's gonna be that or even work out or anything? I don't think we know. I think Dave's right. You got to give him another year.
Oh yeah. No, that's fair. All right. So speaking of receivers, then let's do you want to talk about some of these prospects that could be coming
here?
You're
dying to do it. I know you are.
Dying is one.
So let me set this up before Alex starts talking. So we've been going through slowly as we do every year, the draft by position groups. We put off safeties last week, so we have that no one from Tampa drafted, and Alex watched 195 wide receivers over the course of 3 weeks and 360 hours of film. And so he really wants to talk about receivers, and we really want to hear it. So Alex, please don't bore everybody by spending an hour on this. But
we've already gone through half the show, so I'm not going to spend a full hour on it. Thankfully,
well, we have other things to talk about. Is all I mean.
So and you know what? I because there are so many receivers, I do want to kind of focus in a little bit before we even get started. Look, Washington's not drafting receiver in the first round. They've made their moves at receiver, their big moves anyway. I don't see them spending a first or second round pick on a receiver to add to the group right now. I still think they need help at receiver. I don't think that what they have is good for the long term or, even a great receiver group. I think you got a good 1-2 on the top and then some bodies behind that right now. So if they add to it, it's great, but they just realistically have bigger needs for the first 2 rounds. But I will give you the first round picks, the second guys who are probably going to be there in the second round. Real quick. So Travis Hunter out of Colorado, we talked about him as a corner / receiver, right? Like he's probably the top prospect in the league. Who's not a quarterback.
Might be the top player overall.
Right. I think he is.
Yeah.
Just raw talent-wise, that what he did was incredible. So he'll probably go top 3, and, there's no chance that he would fall beyond the...
falling to 29.
I don't think he's fallen past 5. I'd be shocked by that. But some other first-round guys, you have McMillan out of Arizona. He's kind of more of a big man receiver. If you watch him, he's he plays like Terry McLaurin if Terry McLaurin was also 6'4". So he's going to be a stud. But Luther Burden out of Missouri, Iboka out of Ohio State, and then Matthew Golden out of Texas. Golden's probably your speedster here. He could be there, by the way, if Washington did go crazy and take a receiver, he might still be there at 29, and he's your take the top off guy. If he's there, like I could see the value in having him on this team because I think it would just make matchup nightmares with Terry and Deebo being both short, middle type guys, and then now you have a guy with 4.29 speed. I could see that really messing with some teams. I don't think it's likely, but if he were there, I would at least consider him if I were Washington. So your second, third round guys, and some of this is kind of who knows, right? Uh, so you got Trey Harris out of Ole Miss, Jack Beach out of TCU, Eric Aramore out of Stanford, Jalen Royals out of Utah State, Ty Felton out of Maryland, who I know a lot of local people really want Washington to draft. I just don't see
They're a
it
bunch
falling.
of homers.
It's a bunch of homers. It's homers. He's a good receiver. Like he was very productive. He had almost 100 catches, over 1,000 yards.
It's kind of the devil you know versus the devil you don't know, sort of, so
Right.
to speak. These guys watch them, they're fans. I understand that.
Right.
So draft the local kid. I get it, but that doesn't necessarily mean they care about him any more than anybody else.
Right.
And
the team.
Yeah. Last one, Jaden Higgins. Those guys are all probable second, third round range. Again, I don't see Washington going after a receiver in these early rounds, though. So I didn't want to focus too much of my time on them. Where I see Washington maybe making move is fourth round and later, especially if they trade back and can add some more picks. I could really see them adding receiver somewhere. So let me give you the names of guys who I really think fascinate me. I'm going to start with...
This is a list of men who Alex is fascinated with. Continue.
It is.
I do like that start.
There's things about you guys I'm not aware of, apparently.
Let me start. I will give the homer something. Jalen Lane out of Virginia Tech, 5'8", small little guy. This guy would interest me not only because I think he'd be a good slot receiver long term, with his size, and he's got great speed, 4.38 speed. He would solve our kick and punt return problems that we've had for a while.
Which the problem being that they have nobody that's not average at best.
Right. And he averaged almost 11 yards per return on punts. It had 67 returns in his college career. So he knows how to do it. He's good at it. I could see some value there just on the special team side, but I think he would also be a long-term answer at slot receiver. He isn't super productive as a receiver, but if that were his role, I could see him in the fourth or fifth round. Something like that would be great. All right, other guys. Xavier Restrepo out of Miami, big play guy. Averaged over 20 yards a catch. Obviously, he played with Cam Ward, the number one quarterback prospect. And I think he was a big reason for Ward's success, not necessarily the other way around. I know it's always mutual a little bit, but he is a big play guy, not one of these stretch the field guys who I think we could use here in Washington. So he's another one that I'd really keep an eye on. Pat Bryant, if you wanted more of a big physical guy, Pat Bryant out of Illinois, he would fit that mold. He's 6'2", but he plays that kind of possession role where he's going to get the ball and he's going to try and knock over the cornerback around him. He's not going to run a big and make a big play. He's just going to hurt people.
Washington's had a host of these type of guys over the years, and none of them seem to work out.
That's true. And the thing is, I think Luke McCaffrey is here to do that if they can develop him into it already. So I don't know if that's necessarily a big need. Another big play name, just to throw him out there, Jordan Watkins out of Mississippi. Another sub four guy, who he has a knack when you watch him of getting past his corner, just making a little head fake, making a little a move that just gets him open every time. So he would be on that list. Same with Tez Johnson out of Oregon. I'm a sucker for, I think we need someone who can take the top off. Now, the interesting thing about Tez Johnson, didn't do well in the combine. Ran a 4.5. But when you watch him play, he runs deep balls or deep routes all the time.
What school is he from?
Oregon.
So, I mean, is this school that's facing better defenses, not a mid-major? I mean, the Pac-10 is not that good, but it's not a mid-major.
Right.
At least.
It kind of is. It kind of isn't. It's kind of iffy.
Well, the Pac-10 was about to become a mid-major school.
Right. That's
team.
Yeah. All right, now let me give you the two guys who interest me the most.
Here's the two
One,
men that Alex is most fascinated with.
yes,
Continue.
most fascinated by Dante Thornton out of Tennessee.
Yep. I
Ran
like
a
him too. Yep.
ran a 4.34. He is 6'5". So
That's crazy.
that combination of size and speed doesn't happen much.
I'm gonna guess he weighs 140 pounds.
205.
Okay, he's a freak of nature then.
He is a freak of nature athlete. Here's the thing: Tennessee does not throw the ball. He had just 26 catches. He averaged 25.4 yards per catch. So this guy is a big play machine.
What's his drop rate? Do you have that?
I don't have his drop rate now. But Tennessee just didn't throw the ball a whole lot. So, but this guy could be that big
Give me
play.
his name again. Who we're talking about?
Dante Thornton. 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 There's a second N in there,
Now,
I can't
some of
find
the
him.
weaknesses on him though that I do have up on here is that he does have some consistency issues on
Sure.
creating separation. He lacks lateral explosiveness at times.
Oh yeah, no, you're
and
just going to send him deep. He's not going to be running crossing
right.
routes.
Right. So I mean, and he's limited in his route tree and what he did at Tennessee. But then again, 26 catches. They didn't like you said, Alex. They didn't throw very much to him anyways.
Right.
So he's a very raw, talented player that could sit on this roster for like 2-3 years, and you could see something come about from the back end of the roster and work his way up. He has that potential.
I think he's like a 6th, 7th round pick with a ton of potential.
Yeah.
So that's why I really like him.
Okay. I unfortunately can't find.
I'm with you on that one too. I do. I do like him a lot too.
I can't find his number of targets thrown, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I wanted to check.
Yeah. The problem with college stats, it's very hard to find like advanced stats for a lot of college stuff.
That's just too many of them.
Yeah. I think that's why. Like even the good stat sites are like, well, there's just 3,000 schools that we have to track then.
Well, I mean, they have all these players. They just don't do a deep dive into some of the stats. That's
right. But anyway, Thornton's one that I love as a prospect. The other one, this guy's kind of a wild card. Savon Williams out of TCU. He's 6'5", 222, so big physical guy. And if you take him, it's because you have Debo. He's your Debo replacement. This guy had 600 yards rushing, 600 yards receiving last year, or over 600 for both. He can throw the ball because he played quarterback in high school, and they had him lining up at quarterback at times to usually run, but occasionally throw the ball. He's your gadget guy. He's gonna do, or I'm sorry, no, he had 322 rushing yards, not 600. 600 passing yards, 300 rushing yards, 60 catches, 51 carries, 12 touchdowns. I just think adding a second guy who can do what Deebo Samuel does could create havoc in terms of offensive play calling. And, with his size, he's bigger than Deebo at 6'5". So I think that would be a fascinating addition to this roster, not just for short term, but for long term. He can line up anywhere. He can, play in the slot. He can play outside. He can play tight end at his size, kind of like a wing. And he can play all the spots in the backfield. So just a chaos agent. So that would be my other guy that I look to later in the draft. I've seen him going as high as 4th round on some like mock sites and mock drafts that I've done. So that might be a little tougher.
I kind of like the idea of Dante Thornton.
I love the idea of Thornton.
Yeah.
Thornton. Yeah. I love both those guys for very different reasons. They're very different prospects, but I think they would both add something. So there are some other names, too many probably to even read them all off, but Steve's shaking his head, no, please stop.
Well, I mean, it's just a list of names, and it's hard to translate that kind of thing on the radio.
It really is. It really is.
Well, see, the one thing I like about Thornton, and I want to bring up Puka Nacua before I said anything. But Puka Nacua, when he came out, very, very similar makeup. He was projected to be around a 6th to 7th round selection as well. He wasn't highly utilized in BYU, but he was a good explosive receiver out there for him. Now, granted, he had a little more of a defined route tree out there at BYU. He was a little more of a natural pass catcher. But when I think of Thornton, I almost kind of want to say maybe a little bit of Puka Nacua in him, because Puka Nacua came out of nowhere. No one thought he was going to be the receiver that he was at all. So that's one of the reasons why I do like him a lot myself.
Yeah, no, I just look at that size and speed combination, and like, how can you not look at that and just get excited just from a raw talent perspective? I know speed is not everything in the NFL, and more often than not, the fastest player in the combine is usually a bust. I think I pulled it up, like the last 10 drafts, only 2 or 3 of them are like worked out and made it past their first contract. Guys who ran the fastest combine.
Those guys normally don't do well in the NFL.
They don't. It's a weird thing, because you would think speed is so important.
No, I mean, it's you can't have it all, right? And so when you play at levels below the NFL, below the professional level, you can a lot of times win on physical qualities alone.
Right.
Speed. You're going to torch everybody you run in a 4.3 in high school. Nobody's going to stop you. If you play anywhere but Alabama, some of the very top schools, you're going to torch every corner in college as well. That's not the case in the NFL. And what happens is the people who rely on athleticism too much sometimes don't have great hands, sometimes don't run great routes, sometimes aren't quite as football smart as others, and because very few have it all, and that's why I think a lot of them don't make it in the NFL.
Right. They've never been tested in the other ways.
The guy who's running a 4.5 and isn't 6'5" has to develop in ways that the freaks of nature don't.
Right. No, I think you make a good point there. So, there are plenty of guys in this draft. I fully expect Washington to draft at least one receiver at some point in the draft, because, like I said, I don't think that they're done building that receiving room. They still have specific needs. Like I mentioned, they need somebody who could be a good deep ball guy to replace Dyami Brown, because they don't have that now. And they honestly need a slot guy still, in my mind. So,
with apologies to Mr. Luke.
Well, I meant like a scat back type slot guy.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah. Luke McCaffrey is more of like your traditional old school big man.
Really, they drafted him because his name's McCaffrey. Can we just admit that?
Oh, yeah. They drafted him because Adam is BFFs with his brother.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Right. I don't know if they're actually that close, but they are close-ish.
I would more accurately state they overdrafted him because of that.
Absolutely.
I don't believe that one bit.
You don't?
I'd say, you know what? Luke McCaffrey came out. I thought he was raw. I thought he was overdrafted, but I thought he provided the upside and everything. I just thought there were better players available, like an offensive lineman, stuff like that. But, I mean,
you didn't think he was overdrafted, though?
No, yeah, I do.
Oh, you do? I thought you said you didn't think that.
No, I still think he was. So I was only kidding my first initial statement about, no, I don't think he was.
Oh, okay. I'm missing the very obvious sarcasm. Sorry, I'm usually the one that's giving obvious sarcasm, and I totally blew it in this case.
You're being sarcastic?
No. Never.
Well, see, the problem is with my video being frozen, you also can't see the facials going on either at the same time. So
we're having some technical difficulties with Dave if people can't hear it and we can't see him anymore.
Dave, we can't see your clown makeup right now. That's the problem. Speaking of nepotism and my scratching people's backs, a non-Washington, well, kind of a former Washington topic. Former Washington corner and now Hall of Famer Champ Bailey. His son is now being recruited to go to college. And guess who's recruiting him? Champ Bailey's former teammate here in Washington, Deion Sanders.
Boo.
Yes, we're booing Deion, not Champion or his
I'm
son.
booing Dion, yes,
Yes,
to be clear.
yes, but it is funny because they did play here, Champ's rookie year, and that year where Deion showed up to just collect a paycheck.
Yeah.
And ruined everything. I'm gonna say
I really dislike Deion Sanders. I don't like his attitude. I don't like anything about Deion Sanders.
I'm with you. He was a cowboy who came here. I never liked that.
It wasn't even really that for me. I just don't like Deion Sanders.
His big personality thing, especially his post career
Yeah,
like broadcast personality, was
it's
grating.
obnoxious. Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
Well, if you notice how like before his son went to the draft, was before initially he was like, well, I'm going to make sure the right team drafts him, and I'm going to sit there and tell him what team not to go to, and now all of a sudden when he recently interviewed, oh yeah, I'm okay with him going to this team or that team or this team,
Right.
pretty much almost every team in the league except for like maybe 2 teams. It's like you realize you really have no say, and you're going to ruin your son's future if you keep standing up and saying things like this.
Kind of sounds a little bit like Bronny James.
A little
bit.
Yeah. Here's the
thing. At least
watching-
Shedeur Sanders carries some talent, and I think he could be a good developmental quarterback. But you'll break that down more in a coming weeks. So
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I started watching them this week, him and the other first round ones. I'll save it for next week. But
we're gonna see if
2
Alex can do as good a job with quarterbacks as I have always done.
Well, I'm not going to because also we don't need a quarterback for the first time in 10 years.
That's why I wasn't that interested in it.
I know. And I was super interested because it meant I also get to break down kickers.
Which is Alex's favorite thing in the world. And there's nothing people don't understand. There's nothing Alex likes in this world, including his family, including his cats,
right,
more than kickers.
Well, punters. I actually like punters more than kickers.
You take either one.
Right. And I blame Tressway for liking punters more than kickers because Tressway is just such a nice guy.
He was a very nice guy. He was trying to hawk a board game, remember?
Yeah, yes, he was.
Listen, I'm sure we could figure out a 3-way with you, the punter, and the kicker. It's all good.
At least can we find like one of those female kickers from college just to make it like a devil's 3-way situation?
How many football players have you lived with at this point, though, Alex? I mean, don't go back to female now. Just own it.
Well, there was that short-lived thing with Brendan McManus sleeping on my couch, but he had to leave.
He had to go. He got in too much trouble.
Yes. That was the dream. A former
right,
punter-kicker combo.
I'm going to run through safeties real fast, too.
Sure.
I was supposed to publish this on today, Wednesday. We're recording this, and I forgot. So this will be published later this week as well. So no one from Tampa did this, and we're just going to run through some names for this just so you guys have a taste of it. So the top guys on the board for the safety group, Nick Imanwari from South Carolina, 6'3", runs a 4.38 40. Maliki Starks from Georgia, 6'1", 4.4 40. Kevin Winston from Penn State, 6'2". Sebastian Castro, 5'11", from Iowa. Xavier Watts, 6 foot from Notre Dame. Andrew Makuba, 6 foot from Texas. Billy Bowman Jr., 5'10" from Oklahoma. Malachi Moore, 6 foot from Alabama. In no one's opinion, it's Imanwari and Malachi Starks are probably the day one picks. Mm-hmm. Imanwari in particular is a freak of nature. Yes, Gabe Taylor is in this group.
Right. We were talking about that pre-show.
Yeah, Gabe Taylor is not his brother, okay? He is fairly fast, but he's only 5'10", 190. He is not and never has been the athletic freak of nature that his brother is.
Right.
I want everybody to understand that. I know there's been some rumors that Washington may either draft him or sign him if he's available. I think they should for the good of the fan base and for the Taylor family and all of that.
Right.
But people need to not expect him to be his brother because that is not what he is.
No, he's not. Right. He's not Sean Taylor. If you bring him in, he's going to be a special teamer if he works out, which, you know what? Great for him.
And frankly, it'll be an honor to the Taylor family.
Right. Yeah. And I think we'd all be thrilled.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the short version of. I don't want to drone on and on about safeties. That's the short version of safeties. They're not going to draft a safety in round 1.
No, probably not. Maybe
There's
round
very
2.
few. After now having been through 25 years of draft data, I can tell you almost no safeties get drafted in round 1.
Yeah, it's very rare.
Very rare, yes.
That's what made Sean Taylor such a unique thing, anyway. Like
Yes.
that he was a safety drafted in round 1. And Laron Landry, but we won't get into that
No,
nonsense.
we will not.
Mr. Biceps,
So that's the nutshell of safeties.
Yes, yeah. So we have a few minutes left on the show, and it was a light, content week. But I think we came up with something we wanted to talk about just as a fun jibber jabber, and that is the question of what should Washington really do with that first round pick specifically? Should they stick there? How actively should they be looking to trade back? And what's the minimum you really need to trade back at this point?
Well,
So,
I'll start. I mean, I did a little mock
Yeah.
draft, my first and only mock draft of the offseason so far. And I hate trading back out of round 1. I just have a mental block against it, so I never do
Sure.
it. I never advocate for it. But Amarian Hampton popped up as available at 29 on this
Mhm.
draft I did, and I had to jump all over that. I mean, Washington needs a running back. There you
They do.
go, running back. So if he's available, I would jump all over it.
Well, it's funny you did that because I actually traded in this mock draft. I traded back. The Eagles wanted to come up, swapped with them, and Amarian Hampton was available there, and I jumped on him. But the only thing is, I don't think Amarian Hampton gets outside the top 20. So if he's not there, then it's Travion Henderson. I'm real big on him. I'm going after him. So
Yeah, it's not necessarily true that these mock drafts, have it right.
Oh,
just
of
'cause
course
it
not.
happens.
No.
Yeah.
The mock draft algorithms are just doing best guess at most,
Yes.
if not outright. Here's the number 1 player. Here's the number 2. Most of them are actually do a decent job now, at least, of saying position need this team. I think they need to trade back if they can get something like Dave did with the Eagles or even with Kansas City, which happened for me, and pick up an extra pick somewhere.
yeah.
I get it. To me, going back 2 or 3 spots, not a big deal because you still have a first round pick at that point. I did that, and I got ended up with Tennessee tight end James Pierce, which I don't love it, but yeah,
Now,
they need a
I
tight
just
end, or not tight end, sorry, defensive end.
I was
I
going to
said-
say, I
yeah.
was a bit
Yeah.
confused.
No.
Now, to add real quick to a column I wrote last week, I was looking around for a good trade back option. The one that I came up with, that I think was the best fit for both New England to come up because of pieces that they would need, and Washington move that back would be Washington moving pick 29 and their 7th round pick back to New England for 2nd round pick 38 overall, 4th round pick number 88, 82 overall, 5th round pick 144, and he wound up swapping. They were swapping their 2nd round picks, and that wound up being over the trade value chart that I used off of Draft Tech, which goes off of the league wide trade value chart. Washington received 640 total points. New England gained 641. Usually trades are worked out to where one team gets a little more of the advantage on their side, but I went split down the middle, kept it even, and I thought this was the best trade to work out because New England needs to add more linemen and more talent around Drake May, and I think that's optimal for them to jump up.
How many picks did that net in the end?
That wound up we wound up moving 2 picks, and we wound up getting 1, 2, 3, 4. So we netted 2 picks out of that, 2
That's
additional
not bad.
picks. Yeah.
But they just need more bites at the apple. So
Yes.
Everybody advocate for keeping the pick. Don't trade out of the first round. It's really dumb because you can't get a 5-year you can't get a 5th-year option out of a
Sure,
second
I
round
get that.
pick.
Yeah.
sure, yeah, no, I think that that is a very strong point about the 5th-year option. The one thing I've started seeing a lot of talk about, and we'll discuss it when we get to quarterbacks a bit, is Dart, the basically 3rd quarterback a lot of people have on the board these days, If
Yeah.
he's still somehow there at 29, there's going to be some QB needy team who really wants to trade up at that
It
point.
happens. It
Yeah.
happens a lot. So possibly.
Yeah, and then you can get a lot more bang per buck for that trading out of the first round. I
I'm
know, I
not
understand
doing
your
trading out of.
hesitation with
I'm
it.
not trading out of the first round if it's up to me.
I think it also depends on who's there. It depends so much. If there's a guy that falls that I love,
Look, if Omarion
yeah.
Hampton is there at 29, you'd have to move heaven and earth to make me not take him.
No, I
If
like
I'm-
And
Hampton a
also-
lot.
And also Josh Simmons, the offensive tackle from Ohio State. I mean, granted, he battled some injuries, but I mean, that guy's a beast. You put him on that right tackle side, move Coleman to the inside. I mean, you have an offensive line for the next 3 years that's going to be massive, athletic, and very, very formidable when you have to face the Eagles over the next few years.
I don't
Good
mind.
point.
I don't mind an offensive lineman. I don't mind a running back. I went defensive end just because I think that's a big need.
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
if one of those guys is still there, that you really like, you just take them. I agree with that point.
Yeah.
But if somehow the draft breaks and there's really no one you love at 29, you got to be very open to trading back at that point.
I will not trade out of the first round.
Would you trade 29 for 30?
Yes.
29 for 32?
Yes.
Okay. So you're flexible with 3 teams at least.
Yes. That is correct.
Yeah. We've found flexibility in Steve. It only took 10 years of the show.
I don't like flexibility. It's not my hallmark.
What about the second round pick though? That you're probably more amenable to
Yeah,
moving.
I'm a little bit.
Yeah, just because it doesn't matter if it's a second for
Contractually,
like
it doesn't matter.
2/3 suddenly is
Yeah.
great, you know?
Right.
Yeah, because there's no 5th round option or 5th year option.
Right.
Yeah. I think they need to add more picks though. They need to find a way to do it. So, well, we actually made it to the full hour, guys, which is great news.
Amazing.
Yeah, we did it again.
We're good
we
at
did.
babbling for an hour. I think we could babble for an hour with nothing to talk about at this point.
We absolutely could.
We've probably done it.
Yeah, we
Well,
just free reign.
Well, let me add one more thing. I know Alex will like this. In this mock draft we did, in the last pick of the draft, I did take kicker from Miami, Andres Borregales.
Nice. He's solid.
I did take him.
He's solid. He's not
So.
the best kicker, but he's solid.
Well, you know, I
Alex
picked
knows
that because
about
I believe Washington had him in for a visit, didn't they?
He might have been on the list. I didn't look
Well,
at.
he was on the list that you gave. I thought he was mentioned a couple weeks ago about Washington wanting to bring him in or something
I
like
can
that.
say this as someone who now knows more about draft data, probably on the face of the earth, than
Right.
anyone who's not employed by the NFL. Never draft a kicker.
No.
Never draft a kicker.
As much as I'm pro special teams, you can always get a good kicker.
I'm telling you, there's no reason to, in any capacity, draft a kicker.
What about trading up for long snapper? Should we do that? Is that a good idea?
I thought it was a good, honestly, I thought it was a decent move at the time. It didn't work out.
No, it didn't.
Cheeseman didn't work out, but they had to have somebody, and those are rarer,
True.
good ones.
Right. Good long snappers.
So I
Average
thought it
long
was a good
snapper is
draft.
easy.
Not every pick is going to work out.
No, of course not.
Right.
Especially if you're Ron Rivera.
Right.
Yeah.
If you're Ron
And
Rivera,
Cheeseman was known to be. I told you guys, Cheeseman was known to be the number. Forget what number 2 or number 3 long snapper in that class.
right. And there's usually only 1 or 2.
A couple. I mean, the guy Rubio gave me like 3 names and said that was,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you generally don't want to draft a kicker. I guess if you have to, or you feel like you have to, don't do it before the late 7th round.
Yeah. Even then, that's pointless.
Mr. Relevant level, fine. I don't care.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, at that point, but
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
better chances you can take.
Yeah, exactly. All right, that should wrap up the show. And we will see you all next week.
Later.